Residents in Joburg find themselves between a rock and a hard place. Either they don't have electricity or they don't have water. Some areas haven't had water for weeks, while others haven't seen a drop in months. eNCA reporter Heidi Giokos is on the ground and she joins us now. Heidi, what's the reason behind the lack of water in that area? If I believe correctly, you are in Rosenttenville, and I know that earlier this morning they did send water tankers to that area as well.
Yes, so we are in the area of Rosenttenville, and we did get a chance to speak to some of the residents as well as the ward councillor in this area, and it seems as though they're not really getting a clear explanation around what exactly is the problem. Initially they were told that the reservoir is at 30%, therefore they are unable to pump water efficiently and essentially to the main reservoir and to the homes and the area here. This is why residents are without water. We've also reached out to Rand Water, but to no avail, just to try and get a sense why people have not had water for over 5 days and counting. Of course, it puts residents in a very difficult position not to have water and also not to have an explanation. Before we listen to what one of the residents had to say, I want us to listen to what the ward councillor had to say in terms of their efforts to try and figure out what the problem is and when exactly water will be restored.
We've got 5 different wards that are affected with water issues. You've got wards 54 and 55 that are affected by issues at the Crown Mines Towers. Wards 55 and 56 and 124 affected by the Forest Hill Tower. Then wards 56 and 57 affected by the South Hills Water Tower, where we are today. Unfortunately, the people supplied by the South Hills Water Tower didn't have water for 6 days until last weekend. And then it came on until Tuesday, and then it went off again. So I had a phone call from the MD of Johannesburg Water this morning. He's blaming it on the fact that the Klip Riversburg Reservoir is below 30% capacity, so they're not able to pump at the moment. So they're trying to recommission the Mayor's Hill Reservoir that you see behind me, but that's got a crack in it, I believe. So there's just no end in sight.
And of course, Heidi, it's one thing to not have electricity and then also not to have water, as you said, for days on end. What are the residents saying? They must be furious.
Exactly, and this is the thing. You constantly have to look at the load shedding schedule to figure out when you are going to have power, when you are not going to have power, and now residents also have to sit with no water. Residents indicating to us that this is a violation of their basic human rights. But I think what's also important here is residents saying we pay for the service. It's not like they're not paying for the service and therefore their water is being cut, and they can understand if that was the case, but they pay for their water, they pay for the service, yet they are not receiving the water. What's also interesting is that residents have indicated that they are extremely frustrated with the fact that they have to now plan and make sure that they are outside their homes when the water tankers arrive, so that they can get as much water as possible, because they don't know when the tankers are going to come again or when the water will actually be restored. And one resident saying, I'm not going to go and collect water outside in the water tanker because that's not the service that I pay for. I actually pay for water to come out of my tap. It's a service I pay for, and I'm not getting that service, which is a fair point to make, because it's the same thing that we feel when we don't have electricity. We're paying for electricity, yet we're not receiving it. And residents are saying it's also shocking that their water bills don't decrease despite the fact that they don't have water for half of the month. Let's listen to what one resident had to say.
You can't come home from work, have a decent shower, you can't do nothing. The people with babies and grannies and old folk are suffering the worst. As for Rand Water and Joburg Water, I got at least bit to say about them. There's not one good thing I'll mention. Last week was 6 days. We're going into the 4th day now. I do work for Rand Water. They got technicians sitting and sleeping in that yard. They're not going out. All whatever you need is in that facility. So they keep saying, we need to do maintenance, we need to do this, we need to do that. Why aren't they doing it? They keep saying, the boss had a trip. Where's the electricians? Stop making excuses. Service the people. We don't want tanks. I never pay for the tank. And I never pay for the 25-liter bucket too. I'm paying for my water, so is everybody else. And everybody should be treated in the same fashion. These people are payers. Support them, service them.
And Heidi, just very lastly, have you heard anything about the water issues in Melville?
Yes, I have been seeing a number of people tweeting and expressing their frustration on various groups. We are going to be heading and making our way to Melville now, as we do know that residents there have also been without water. There have been a number of areas Baron, in the Johannesburg area that have just not had water. We know recently for example, in Ridgeway, where people did not have water, they decided to protest and they wanted their water restored. There's clearly a fundamental problem here. Previously, we were told it's got to do with load shedding. The pumps are unable to pump sufficient water to the reservoirs. But what is the issue now? And I think it's going to be imperative for Rand Water or even Joburg Water to come out and explain exactly what the problem is. I've reached out to both of them, and we do hope that they will be able to respond and explain to residents what the issue is and when the water will be restored.
Thank you so much, Heidi Giokos. As she said, she will be heading to Melville to also find out, how residents are feeling there. The water issue is definitely having a huge impact on residents in Johannesburg.